Hello, my name is Jason Boswell from Micro Focus. I'm the product manager of the product Data Discovery. Now, Data Discovery has had a new release, and this presentation is about what's new in that new release. That new release is version 3.2. Now, given that Data Discovery is a SaaS product, we do all the work for you. So we do all of the upgrade work for you. So all the people that have tenants on the demonstration instance or the production instance will have to do nothing really. If they log in, they'll see that the upgrade has been completed. But what I'd like to do in this presentation is explain to you some of the changes that have happened between the version 3.1 and 3.2. So first of all, in terms of new features, you'll notice we have new grammars and regions. So you can see in the diagram there, we've got a number of new regions that have been added that have grammars that are specific to particular countries. Of course, before we had grammars that, such as credit card numbers, which were global, so they applied to all of the regions. But search addresses, driving license numbers, national identity numbers, those types of things were specific to particular countries. So we've added regions for Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Turkey, and the United States of America. And as we've done that, we've added more regions. So you can specify a particular region as well as particular country in terms of the grammar entities. Just a tip that's worth noticing: as we updated some of the tags, it's important that some of the tags need to be renamed. So they were previously called European addresses. They are now those address tags are pointing at the worldwide grammars. So it's probably worth renaming some of the address and the phone number tags. We've also updated the processing agent. The agent is a small piece of software that you can download from the SaaS portal that allows you to index information that relies on premise. Now, we've streamlined this agent installation and administration process, so it makes it a few of the customers were finding that a little difficult to get started, found it a little fiddly. So what we've done is we've improved the installation, and you also notice it's a lot easier to see the processing flow. So you can click on the event in the event viewer to see how the information has been indexed through the system. We've also added the gateway URL and the port number. So this is a primary piece of information that allows the secure connection between the on-premise agent and the SaaS index. So that is now displayed quite clearly so that customers can easily copy and paste that when registering the gateway. If you had a tenant which was on the 3.1 version, you will need to upgrade that agent to work with the 3.2 version of the software. And I've detailed the steps here. It's quite a simple process. I've been through this myself. You just revoke the agent from the cluster, and that's in the SaaS Data Discovery UI. Then it's just a very simple way of uninstalling the existing agent on the server, download the new agent through the normal process, install that agent on the local Windows server. So we always recommend running that installation as administrator on the Windows server. Then you just follow what you did before, or follow the prompts to re-register that agent as the gateway URL on the Windows server, and then finally assign that agent to the cluster. And now, even though you don't have to re-index your content after you've upgraded the agent, you will need to re-register and just make sure that you've re-registered that back in the cluster so any new processing will be able to take place. This was a kind of fairly significant change in our agent, and we wouldn't normally change the agent significantly between versions. So this process of revoking the agent and adding the agent back in wouldn't normally be required on an upgrade or on the production system. There's also a number of connect enhancements. One thing we noticed was that customers wanted to have a specific set of grammars used for each of the repositories. So as you can see on the right hand side here, we have a set of default entries, and then you've got the ability to change what entities you would like. So we realized that the default that we were choosing wouldn't be applicable to every organization, particularly as we've added a lot more of the grammars into the system. So you really want to minimize the number of grammars you have selected, and that reduces the processing time of your index. So let's say you work between the US and Germany, then you would only select the particular grammars. And you won't want to do that every time for every single repository you create. So it makes sense to create a template. So there's a new option in the menu here, repository templates. You create the a number of settings. So you could select your grammars that are appropriate for your organization. And then when you create new repositories, you would base those on the template each time. Also, the repository selection view on the data volume dashboard, you'll notice that we've moved the section up to choose a repository up the top here, and so it makes it easier and the data is a lot more presentable. Notice you can also drag and drop on the timeline, so if you want to see how much data was ingested between a particular time frame, that's also available. Further on the Connect enhancements, there's a few user interface changes that were added in there, which is mainly based on customer feedback. There's an improved entity selection when creating a tag. Before you could only select the high-level groupings of the entities, and then so high-level grammars here, and you would then have to go and really need to know what was in the list there to start typing away to pick the specific entity on the grammar that you were selecting. Now they're just in a list here, so it's much easier to find what you've selected by the tick box and what is available. There's also the ability when you're actually creating the grammars, customers are quite finding it quite hard to see the button which is on the right hand side to create a new entry on a grammar. So there's a button on the top there to make it easier. And finally, on this page here, when you're creating a new tag, you can create a reporting group at the same time. So this is feedback that we're getting from customers and those early users of the system that we're trying to make the product much easier and more intuitive to use. One of the bigger changes in the product is the change to the risk scoring mechanism. First of all, you'll notice that we've changed the name from privacy score to risk score. And we've also increased the maximum value on the weighting labels. So the weighting labels help us determine what was the privacy score and now is the risk score. But now there's an enhanced computational method to do that. Well, in the past, what we found that if you had perhaps one highly sensitive grammar attached to a document, but then you had lots of partially sensitive ones, this was reducing the actual risk score by having more partially sensitive ones in, which wasn't strictly true. So what you should really do is add up all of the grammars that you have and the weighting system, and they should all have an effect. So the more grammars that are selected on a document really it increases the risk score. So the new method is based on a asymptotic function. So basically, the bigger these values in it as they're added up, means we get closer and closer to the 100 score. So the risk score now goes between 0 and 100, and it will never go over 100. But what you'll find now is that the weights with the highest scoring system have the largest effect on this score. So more Analyze enhancements. In Analyze, if you found links inside the system and you clicked on the links, where we got a bit more of a controlled way about those controlled click-throughs. So much like you have inside email systems, you can control how you click away from following these links. So there's a control plus click option, as you see in other products. Moving on to the Manage tile. In the Manage section, we have new Workbook templates. Before we had Workspace templates, but when you for each new workspace that you created based on a template, you didn't have the ability to um, create default workbooks. And the workbooks are the process that you follow. So you were always they had a blank set of workbooks. And so it made sense, because these are the processes that we follow, to have default workbooks associated with the default workspaces. So I would suggest for anyone who's got an existing tenant that's been upgraded to just review your workspace templates, go back and edit each one of the workspace templates and add in some of the default workbooks. So first of all, create the workbook templates. I've got some examples here. And then once you've created those workbook templates, add them into your workspace templates. So that enables you a much smoother process in creating the workspaces. Some more manage enhancements. We've got some more options in terms of managing the holds to manage the different statuses of the holds. And the map view. So the map view is a view that we have on the workspaces. You can now, before you couldn't click through from this view through to the contents, but now you can drill down through the map view, get to a particular section and view the contents directly from there. In terms of manage enhancements, we've also added more detail to the Workspace report. The Workspace report allows you to, once we've taken a subset of data through a process and analyzed it, taken action on the data, we had charts and visual views of that information as we've taken it through the process, but we didn't represent that in terms of the reports. You'll see us adding more and more information and more options and flexibility in the reporting options, but in this version we've just added more and more information, particularly the visual graphical information inside the Workspace reports. A very powerful feature of the product, which was in the 3.1 version, but it wasn't widely exposed. We didn't tell too many people about it, is the REST API. We've improved the REST API in this particular version, but there are things you need to do to get up and running with the REST API. I will publish some information, a getting started guide on this, on how to use the REST API quite soon, but it is available today. But you do need to make sure you've got the API developer role. So what I suggest you do, and it's just, if you don't have the role, this is the message you get, which isn't particularly helpful. We will improve this message. So if you go to the Swagger interface, which describes, you can see on the right hand side here, what methods are available to you. And really it's many of the options that you do through the UI are available through the REST-based API, and you can see them through the Swagger interface. The URL is there, and the URL is specific to a tenant, so each tenant has got their own instance of there, and you can actually test calls through the Swagger interface. But to get that to work, and so you don't get this error message, you need to have the API developer role, and that really helps us in terms of protecting the product in terms of its security. But so the developer role is available inside the administration section of the product. So you go into the administration section, go down to roles, into administration. And what I recommend you do is don't edit the administrator role. I reckon you create a new role called the API developer role and add the API developer position to that role. Once you've got this new role, assign this role to users as necessary, and that will give them access to A, the Swagger interface, and B, to execute any of the REST calls. So just to finalize here, there's a few extra little bits that we've done. We've standardized the filter selection across all of the pages in the interface. There were some differences between the filter selection that was on the left-hand side between the products. And now all the documentation, which was inside the product, but it's also now published inside the support and services section. There's a documentation section there, and you'll find the release notes on there. You'll find the support matrix and all the documentation about the product. So what you see when you actually log into the UI, if you're not got a availability to log into the UI at the time and you want to check out how to do something, you can do that through this documentation. Just an extra little tip here is that we have changed some of the structures of the entities in the background. So if you have enriched any documents in 3.1, enrichment is the ability to go and get the actual values, so that it could particularly useful if you're doing the highlighting of sensitive data actually within inside the documents. I recommend you go through and rerun the enrichment process in 3.2. It's relatively quick process, so that should run through very quickly. So thank you. This is the end of the session. If you've got any questions, please ask those questions on the community forum, which this will be posted on. If you've got any questions, just answer the questions in there and we'll do our best to give you help. Thank you very much. Bye for now.